I'd like to talk to you today about the readiness of our force and some issues that are affecting it. As you know, military leaders have two basic responsibilities: accomplishment of the mission and the welfare of the men and women of our force. Both of those responsibilities are affected by issues of substance abuse, resilience, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. Our service members are human. They're going to have good days and bad days, and sometimes they're going to need a little bit of support to get through that. In fact, every day our service members are accessing the resources that we have provided for them, to include our embedded providers at the units and our sexual assault response coordinator and even our substance abuse programs. They're really learning to problem solve through some of their issues using the soldier, airman, and family fitness programs. For those service members who are experiencing life challenges, there's a much higher chance that they're going to also be experiencing things like substance abuse, domestic issues, even maybe some issues like sexual assault and suicide could become a reality. In the video, you'll see Dr. Pluzny from the VA. She's going to be talking about a study that was done on the first BCT when they were deployed 05 to 07. The unit was studied again during their most recent deployment in 11 and 12. The results look like the misuse of alcohol amongst our service members is declining, which is good news. You will hear from fellow soldiers and airmen, as well as my friend and mentor and predecessor in this position, retired Command Sergeant Major Scott Mills. Although Sergeant Major Mills has since retired, I want you to know that we stand united of one mind on these issues. Leadership can change, but for the Minnesota National Guard, the critical importance of this topic, as well as the effect on this force, is something that we have to stand united against. I ask you to pay attention to this video, if not for your own benefit, for that of your battle buddies and your wingmen. I care about the mission of this organization and the men and women in its force. The issues in this video affect both of them.
Health and wellness is a top priority today. By taking the necessary steps to achieve wellness, we can feel and look better. However, over time, a variety of expected or unexpected parts are added to our lives. Children, promotions, demotions, deployments, to name just a few. And sometimes when these parts are added, we may develop feelings of being overworked, overtired, anxious, stressed.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
With the stress of change, we may rush to seek ways to cope and return to the balance and control we thought we had in our lives.
It's called a cigarette break.
Yeah, or a stiff drink.
Yeah.
Some choose to seek out this balance of their life through healthy exercise, talking with friends, or just taking a bit of downtime. But more often than not, we may reach for a cup of coffee or soft drink for a caffeine boost to help us get through the day, a cigarette to deal with our stress, or maybe a drink or two at night to help us unwind.
How many beers helped you unwind last night?
What do you mean, before or after we went to the club?
Most of us live and work in a culture that promotes ready and available quick fixes. The temptation to use them is always there. The military culture is no exception.
Yep, everybody does it.
But following the crowd and doing what everybody else does is not a healthy solution to our goal of wellness. In fact, a quick fix can lead to problems and complications to our lives down the road. Is a lifetime of reaching for quick fixes what you want your life to consist of? Is this the health and wellness structure you want you, your friends, family, and your squad to depend on? For some within our military culture, quick fixes may also develop into severe problems. The next time you reach for another drink, take a moment and ask yourself why. Why am I doing this?
In our study of first BCT service members, we found that in the year after they returned from Iraq, that about 1 in 3 soldiers were drinking at a level that we call problem drinking. So they're drinking more than they intend. The alcohol might be causing some problems in their life. So they're at risk for developing alcohol abuse or alcoholism. And then within the 6 months to 12 months of their return home, when we interviewed soldiers about their mental health concerns, including alcohol abuse and dependence, based on clinical interviews, we found that 1 in 8 soldiers met what we call criteria for a diagnosis of alcohol abuse or dependence. Substance abuse experts differentiate between problem drinking and substance abuse or alcohol abuse and alcohol dependence. So problem drinking involves drinking more than you intended, drinking large quantities. For men, it involves drinking 5 drinks or more in one sitting, and for women, about 4 drinks or more in one sitting. We call that a binge drinking, or kind of places you on the road to developing a problem with alcohol. Alcohol abuse, though, is a diagnosis. It's a mental health diagnosis that involves drinking that's gotten out of control. So you're drinking more than you intended, you're having a hard time cutting back. Alcohol dependence involves a more severe form of alcohol problem in which they're also dependent on alcohol. So their body physically needs alcohol in order to not have the effects of withdrawal. Catching this early is really important. And if a person starts to notice that their drinking is getting out of control, they're drinking more than they intend, or they're starting to have some problems showing up in their life, then simply cutting back on the amount and the frequency of their drinking is an important first step. If a person tries to cut back and they're not successful and they repeatedly are trying to cut back and they can't seem to control their drinking, then that's really a major warning sign that the drinking is now to a level that professional help is needed.
Sergeant First Class Emmett Klukas had to learn the hard way. Just days before his 3rd child was born, he had a life-changing experience.
On April 8th, 2006, we brought our last unit home from Iraq. It was the RAOC, one of the 151, and we had their 90-day reintegration event in Montevideo. And to this day, I couldn't tell you that I was there. After I left there, which was approximately 1400 that day, I left, and at roughly 1900, I was found in a road ditch by a lady and her 12-year-old daughter, and they saw me laying in the road ditch and expected that I was dead. Not everyone, just because they get a DWI, is an alcoholic, but in my case, you know, 2 of them leading up to the 3rd in the accident, it took me a long time to figure it out, but I realized that it was a problem for me, and I needed to change. I struggled with the fact that I was an alcoholic, and I wanted something to tell me in writing that I was an alcoholic. And I started to read the big book from AA, and it said, if you continuously ask yourself the question, am I an alcoholic, then there might be a problem. I was very afraid to go to an AA meeting, and I thought of it as a cult. I went to the first one. I remember sitting in the car outside the building and just not wanting to go in. And then I went in, and the people there talked about their situations, and they were so similar to mine. And these were everyday people, and some of them very respectable people in the community that had the same struggles that I did, and that had defeated those struggles. They won. If you're putting alcohol ahead of your family and your career, then that's a pretty good indicator that you may be alcoholic. I hope this message gets to somebody that needs it. And I don't know if I'd have gotten this message before any of my incidents, my accident, if I would have stopped. But that's in the past, so that, you know, we'll never know. But if somebody can take this message and not have the accident, and not you know, hurt themselves or their family or loved ones, then it was worth coming here, and I think it will be.
I need a smoke.
And that's sad, but that's not me. I don't have a problem. What are you guys laughing at? Just because I have a drink every now and then doesn't mean I'm that guy.
Yeah, your now and then is I'll have a drink now, and then I'll have another one.
Okay, mister, I can quit whenever I want to.
I can.
Well, then why don't you?
I don't want to. I'm tired of people trying to hassle me into quitting.
Look, what does it really matter what we do in our time off?
You're right. We're doing fine. we're getting the job done.
Value yourself. We value you.
Seriously, can we take a break so I can go have a smoke?
Listen up. We're talking to you.
I care about you, I care about your family, and I care about this organization which you are a part of. So you have to care about yourself, because you're part of a team that relies on you. Not just a small team, but a big team. You gotta maintain that level of awareness. It's okay to have a drink or two, but you've gotta know your limits, and you gotta know when to quit. You could potentially embarrass yourself, the profession, the rank, and that's something that leaders can't afford to do. Those young soldiers watch us. Whether we realize it or not, they're watching us all the time. Even when you think they're not looking, they're there. So we have always got to maintain that professionalism and always show them what the right thing really looks like. And not creating a mess of yourself is part of it, because they will lose respect for you immediately.
Wow, running around the lake sounds like a great date, but I'm gonna have to pass on that. How about afterwards?
Oh, come on. You look like you're in shape.
Well, I mean, I chase a toddler around all day, so.
I'll do it. Wait for her.
No, I'm good. I'm fine. Maybe you should slow down for a second. Okay, you know what? That's it. I'm done.
What?
I'm not gonna sit
Where
here
you
while
going?
you drink. I'm going. Good. Okay. Well, Chad, stop. Slow down. No, I don't want to. No, I have to get up in the morning.
Yeah,
Stop.
so do I.
No, Chad, don't. Chad, stop. No, I don't want you to. Just stop. Stop. Don't. Chad, get off. Just stop. Get off. Stop. No, I can't. Stop it.
Chad Malmberg, a patrol officer for the St. Paul Police Department, is a member of their Blueprint for Safety team, which deals with domestic violence. Malmberg is also a second lieutenant and a Silver Star recipient in the Minnesota Army National Guard.
I deployed for the first time in my military career in 2005 with the brigade from 05 to 07. I believe it was the longest deployment since the war started, so that's pretty remarkable. When I was overseas, one of my primary jobs in Iraq was a convoy commander. We did convoy escorts, and I received a Silver Star for my action on one of those convoy escorts where we were in an hour-long firefight. I've been on the force for less than a year now, but virtually every day I see, I see cases that are related to drugs and alcohol. It's definitely more often than not that when you see, violent behavior or erratic behavior, things like that, it's related to drugs and alcohol. Generally, when you go into a house and something like that has taken place, there's going to be a liquor bottle on the counter, beer cans on the floor, or whatever. There's usually some kind of a link between that abuse and between, the alcohol. One of the key things is people kind of admitting that they have a problem, and soldiers realizing that there's a problem. And once that's done, then making some kind of a commitment to improve things. There's so many different programs out there and different ways that they can do something if they have a problem. If they're struggling with alcohol, if a family member is struggling with alcohol or drugs. I think that's the key, is identifying that there is a problem, and then just committing to fixing it.
Sergeant First Class Christine Dawson supports all Minnesota service members in substance abuse prevention, education, and assessment.
My office is the first step in getting people on the road to recovery. And we've been able to help a lot of people move in the right direction. The expectation of the military is that if you're broken, we'll help you get fixed, and this is the first step in the right direction to be able to do that. Most people, by the time they come to me, have been identified through military means. We do on occasion get someone who will call our phone anonymously, or who will come forward themselves to their command and say, hey, there's some things going on in my life and I think I need to go talk to someone. The first thing I'm going to ask you is what's going on in the home, what's going on with your children, is there any issues at work? What do you think about your drinking history? The definition of abuse is drinking that causes negative consequences. And so the negative consequence often goes unrecognized by the person who's drinking alcohol, but oftentimes will be recognized by the people around them. And alcoholism is down a whole different road, and that's something that we could talk about. And alcoholism isn't marked by how much or how often you drink as much as it is what happens to you when you do drink. It becomes alcoholism when someone continually loses control, no longer has the ability to not drink. After the first drink, there's no regard for what may happen. And a lot of times people will tell you that when they've become alcoholic, they knew it because they would drink one drink and then there was no control after that over when the drinking was going to stop. The whole idea is to get into a recovery process where you'll be able to manage your stress in your life in healthier ways and not take on new addictions such as drinking coffee or smoking or PT or whatever those types of things might be. Well, there is no magic, and treatment is really just a beginning. We call it the beginning or the first steps of recovery. The real work in recovery starts long after you leave the treatment program, and you have to go back to living your normal life and trying to put things back together.
Help is out there for those who ask. However, drinking alcohol seems to be part of the culture here in Minnesota and in the military.
Of course we're going to drink. What else are we going to do in the middle of winter? Play cards?
We can't afford to have soldiers who can't recognize the fact that they might have an issue. That does not help our organization, does not help the team. So self-realization is critical. It's hard, but it's something that people have to do. They have to look at themselves in the mirror every morning and check to see if they're doing the right things.
Master Sergeant Keith Johnson is no stranger to addiction with years of recovery behind him. He joined the Air National Guard with a couple years of sobriety under his belt.
When I quit drinking, I was pretty much at my bottom. And it was taking baby steps, working through, I lost my job that I had because of my alcoholism. And I started out from the bottom again. I went about the first 2 or 3 weeks just on my own. And I was miserable. I mean, I was the poster child for dry drunk. And I was working at a grocery store at a time, and I knew one of the people that I worked with was one of those. You know, she was one of those recovering alcoholics. But she was always smiling, and I didn't get it because I was miserable. And I went up to her one day, and I asked her, I said, hey, Kath, I know you're sober, you're smiling, I think you know I'm trying to sober up, quit drinking. I'm miserable. What's going on? And it was then that she introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And the next day she brought me to my first AA meeting. I picked up running shortly after I sobered up. And I was not happy with running 5Ks and 10Ks. In my career, and I've backed off now because of health stuff, but I've run 18 marathons in my career since I sobered up, and 1 ultra marathon. So there's addictive personalities that stay with. Now, there are some that aren't, don't have addictive behaviors. I am not one, but I mean, I've been with people that can, go out to a club, order a glass of wine or a glass of beer, and leave that glass half full and go. Now, to me, that's alcohol abuse, because my MO when I drank, I wouldn't have just one, and I wouldn't have one half empty. I'd be licking the inside of the glass to make sure I got everything. You know, so there are those out there that can go and have that one, but you know, those I think are more the exception than the rule, and you know, it's the problems that it's those that can't say no, and I was one of those. But by God's grace, I'm not one of those today.
Only you know what it's going to take to realize you have a problem. But if those around you are saying you might, listen before it's too late.
We've got to stay in control. People have to stay in control, because as soon as you lose control, you lose your inhibitions. And as soon as you lose your inhibitions, things go to hell. And I can tell you story after story after story. And they all revolve around people who have lost their inhibitions, have clouded judgment, and things have gone to hell on them. And these are good people. But you're talking about sexual assault, you're talking about drunk driving, you're talking about all the things that can go wrong the second that you lose your inhibitions. So we can't afford for that to happen. We've got to always stay in control.
As Sergeant Major Mills stated, I too have seen good people make poor choices, and unfortunately it's cost them their careers, their families, their lifestyles, and the respect that's been hard-won over a career. Don't let this happen to you, your soldiers, your airmen, or this organization. We're better than that. Be inspired by the stories you've heard in the last 20 minutes, and know that regardless of who sits in this chair, our focus is going to be on accomplishment of the mission and the welfare of the men and women in this force. We've created an app to help support mental wellness and resilience throughout the force. It's available right now for download. Units are going to be handing out codes. It's going to allow leaders anywhere, anytime to access resources to help service members. We are the best trained, most experienced National Guard the country has ever known. Let's ensure we remain a competent, ready force.